Exodus 36, and this is going to be a lot different from what we would normally do, at least half of this. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is that we are going to cover Exodus 36 and 37. Just in case you don't know, normally we do one chapter at the most, and so for me to do two chapters is quite a stretch, but you'll see why as we get into it. We'll take a few minutes to cover the first 7 verses of chapter 36, and then at that point in verse 8, beginning at verse 8, we've got a series of videos to show, and which I don't normally do. We've seen some videos here on Sunday mornings, the book of Exodus. Some of you that have been around for our study through Exodus, you'll have seen some of these videos before. You'll get to see them again. Those of you that haven't been around, you'll have an idea. I'll explain the rest of that a little bit later, but here's what you want to see. And this is going to be the only slide for today. Normally I've got different points, subpoints, all this kind of stuff. But it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. 3 main divisions in chapter 36 and 37. Craftsmen are gathered, collecting the offerings for the tabernacle construction, as you can see there. And then the construction begins, and that's the point where we'll see a series of videos. We'll get into those in just a minute, but picking it up at verse 1 of Exodus 36. It says there, "And Bezalel and Aholiab, and every gifted artisan in whom the Lord has put wisdom and understanding, to know how to do all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, shall do according to all that the Lord has commanded." And in verse 2, "Then Moses called Bezalel and Aholiab, and every gifted artisan in whose heart the Lord had put wisdom, everyone whose heart was stirred to come and do the work." This is super cool. How many of you know how to teach the Bible? How many of you know how to teach the Bible? Right. How many of you know how to lead worship? Right. And oftentimes in our minds, we see those as the only 2 things that the church needs. If you can't teach a Bible study and you can't lead worship, then you're useless. Get out of here. But that is absolutely not true. There's so much more that we need. Shameless plug here. At the end of our service, I'm going to have a few announcements, but one of them is that we're looking for people to serve in the area of sound. We need someone to be able to work the iPad that has the soundboard on it. We need that sound. Why? Why do we need that sound? So that we can hear what's going on up on the stage. We can hear the worship team singing, so that we're able to amplify the instruments. So we need those types of individuals. Now, let me say something about that. I don't work the soundboard. There's one button on there that I know how to work, and it's the TV button, so that I can put the volume up on the music videos. That's all I know how to do. The rest of the stuff, I don't know. I'm lost. Why are there blinking things on here? And what is this knob? And what's going on? And I could mess with it and probably break it and whatever else and maybe figure it out. But generally speaking, that's not my thing. My mind, maybe I could get my mind to think that way, but it doesn't just kind of like normally naturally go that way. My mind normally naturally goes to what we're doing right now. Reading God's Word and then doing my best to explain it. The other stuff, leading worship, I don't know how to play any instruments. So again, my mind, and someone in the first service said that's the right side of the brain. Is that the artistic side is the right brain, the right side? Is that correct? Anybody know? Great, okay. So the other side of the brain, the artistic stuff. And what's interesting to me is this is, as far as the tabernacle construction, this is where God begins. He doesn't begin with the Bible teachers. He doesn't begin with the worship leaders. He doesn't begin with the small group leaders. He begins with the construction people. And oftentimes, even in our society, we see those individuals who work with their hands, construction type people. We see them as kind of like, well, they're the rough, the dirty ones. They don't really belong in church. And yet that is who God begins with here as he's making this tabernacle. Now, in case you're wondering, what is a tabernacle? That's just another name for a tent or a meeting place. That's what God called it, the tabernacle. He wanted this tabernacle constructed so that he could meet with his people. So it's extremely important, and this extremely important project begins with the construction people, the crafty people, the artistic people who think with that other side of the brain that we oftentimes go, we don't have any use for you in the church, be gone. Those are the people that he begins with. Again, Bezalel and Aholiab. Now, if you've been with us through the book of Exodus, you know that these guys have been called before. God called them out. I want Bezalel, I want Aholiab. But it's not just the guys, because it goes on to say in verse 1, and every gifted artisan in whom the Lord has put wisdom and understanding. So God had blessed them, these artistic people, he had blessed them specifically with that artistic flair, that ability to be able to design the things that God wanted designed. He goes on to say in verse 1, he's put wisdom and understanding to know how to do all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, shall do according to all that the Lord has commanded. I'm not blessed with that artistic gift. Any little bit of artistic flair that I have is usually a result of like hundreds of times trying it. I mentioned this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was a few weeks ago, and I think it was in here, maybe it was a Wednesday night, I don't remember. But we have our liquid chalkboard sign that you see on the way in. It's always got something on there. Normally, I'm the one that's doing that. And it comes out looking okay. But that's normally after spending a couple of hours on my living room floor at home, like doing something. It's like, oh, this is really cool. And then I back up and I go, that's really stupid. Erase. And then, do something else. And like, oh, okay, it came out good. And then I back up like, oh, that looks really ugly. And then I just keep on erasing. Some people, if I were to give that to my daughter, one of my daughters, boom, first time, done. She's blessed that way. I am not blessed that way. Okay? Some of you in here are crafty, construction, artistic types of people. And for a long, long time, the church, and when I say the church, I don't mean revival, I mean like, just the church around the world, oftentimes we see those people as, well, if you can't lead worship and you can't teach the Bible, then, I don't know, we don't really have any use for you. But that's nonsense. We have a huge need for you. It helps to dress the rooms up, to take care of the buildings, to, those of you that can look and design and match up colors and all this kind of stuff. Joking around, I might go, you can match colors, wow, that's really girly. Because I'm so tough and manly, But I don't know how to do that, so I just make fun of you because I don't really know how to do it. But it's an awesome thing to be able to look and go, oh yeah, this is going to go good with this and that, and it's like, wow, okay, awesome. And I've seen that throughout the years, people, ladies and guys who were able to do that. They're like, hey, we're gonna redo this room at the church, and and then they can come in and go, well, you know what you really need here is you need this kind of chair, and you need this kind of shelf, and you need to do this. And I'm kind of thinking like, and then they put it all together and it's like, wow, super nice. So we need those types of individuals in the church. God has blessed some of you that way. I am not blessed that way. Maybe you think, well, I could never teach a Bible study. Well, I could never paint a picture or, design things like that. I haven't been blessed that way. And so we see here that these people are extremely important. They play this important role in constructing this meeting place that God wants. He calls these people Bezalel, Aholiab, but every gifted artisan. And then in verse 2, then Moses called Bezalel and Aholiab, and every gifted artisan in whose heart the Lord had put wisdom, everyone whose heart was stirred to come and do the work. Some of you, over the last couple of years, last couple of winter camps that we did, some of you have gotten your hands on those metal Bibles. I had like a stack of metal Bibles, and we were using those as prizes. And some of those had some really cool artwork on them. That was because a lady in the church here at Revival, her name is Nina. Nina contacted me and said, hey, I've got these Bibles, and what I want to do is I want to give them to you, but I want to put some of my artwork on there. I'll paint some stuff or do something on them, and then you can have them and give them to the students. And I said, fantastic. She said, how many do you want? It was like, bring me a stack. I don't know how many you got. I'll take them all or whatever. And so I had this stack, and I gave those out. We finally gave them all out at this last camp. But that's what we're talking about here in verse 2. Everyone whose heart was stirred to come and do the work. Everyone whose heart was stirred. Is your heart stirred? Like, oh, you know what? I can help in this way, artistically or constructionally. Anyways, whatever, you guys get it. You know, I can help build this thing or do this thing. It's like, awesome. I need your help. Those are the people that he begins with. So the craftsmen are gathered there. Now, verses 3 through 7, we see our second main division, which is the collecting of the offerings. Look at verse 3. And they received from Moses, all these crafty people. They received from Moses all the offering which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of making the sanctuary. So they continued bringing to him free will offerings every morning. Now we're going to take a few minutes here before we're going to work our way down to verse 8, where we'll get a bunch of videos and you won't have to listen to me talk. But let's take a few minutes here. Verse 3, here's another incredible portion here. This is in that section on collecting the offerings, okay? And what we see here, first of all, in verse 3 is that they received. So all of these craftsmen who were going to construct the tabernacle, they're receiving from Moses all the offering which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of making the sanctuary. In other words, all of the children of Israel. Now, when it says, in case you don't know, I'm not trying to be silly here. In case you don't know, when it says the children of Israel, it doesn't mean just the little kids, although there were kids involved. We read earlier, men, women, and children. But it's just a general term for all the people of Israel, all of the Israelites, okay? So they actually were bringing all the offerings, the materials, to start the tabernacle construction. So they're all donating, okay? Well, they all brought it to Moses. And then Moses was giving it to the craftsmen, to the crafty people, the construction people. And it says in verse 3, so they continued bringing to him free will offerings every morning. Now, this is where we take a few minutes for some self-abuse. And I'll explain. We're going to ask ourselves some hard questions. Here's the first hard question, okay? The first hard question is this. What I am giving to God, is it free will? Now, you go, well, that's a good question. What does free will even mean? Does anybody know what free will means? Anybody? What do you think? Elijah? What's that? Yeah, it's our own choice. So, let me ask you a question. Don't raise your hand. Don't answer out loud. Don't even look at me funny. Just look at me real cool, like, yeah, don't say anything. But are you here this morning as an offering, a free will offering to the Lord? Or are the heels of your shoes worn out? Because your parents were pushing you and you were digging your heels in like, I don't want to go back in there, please. Is it free will or is it grudgingly? What I want to give to God, I want to give it freely. I want to choose to do it. Are there better things that myself and the other leaders could be doing on a Sunday morning? Sleeping, hello? Now, do I think that that's better? I don't think that that's better. I'd rather be here. But I want you to think about it. I point this out every so often. You've got, I'm just going to confess this to you. I'm getting paid to be here. It's the only reason I'm here. Just kidding. I would be here even if I was not being paid, okay? But you've got volunteer leaders in here. Individuals that are not being paid anything. They don't get nothing from me. But they serve. They're here. Why are they doing that? You ever stop to think about that? Like, some of you are thinking like, man, I don't even want to be here. Why would they be here? They love being here. Would they rather be sleeping? I don't know, maybe. But they're here. It's of their own free will. They're giving an offering. They're giving themselves, their time. They're giving it as a free will offering. They do it freely. That's the perfect picture of what they're talking about here. They continue to bring to him free will offerings every morning. We'll talk about the second part of that, but freely. What I give to God, am I doing so freely? You can have it. That's what I want to do. God, you can have it. What I offer myself, Pastor Chris, what I offer is my time. There's other things that I offer, but Sunday morning, I don't just wake up. I don't know if you realize this, but I don't wake up Sunday morning and just automatically, I've got this message from God, light shines on me in my bedroom and just zaps my head with a message for this morning. That doesn't happen on Wednesday nights either. I spend time throughout the week studying for you guys. Usually, just to get, you don't care about this, but I'll tell you anyways, because we got to fill up the time with something, right? Mondays and Thursdays are my main days for studying for Sunday mornings. I study as much as I can on Monday. I study as much as I can on Thursday. Oftentimes, it's a busy week, and then my study time spills into Friday. Sometimes this time it was most of the day on Friday, and then Wednesday nights. Normally, I'm studying as much as I can on Tuesday, and then as much as I can on Wednesday. And then if I can get a jump on it, I'll try and get some studying in over the weekend for the next Wednesday. But that's what I'm giving. I'm giving my time. That's my free will offering to the Lord. I do it gladly. I love doing it. I love doing it. That's my free will offering. I don't do it like, oh my gosh, Lord, I could be watching a soccer game right now. Instead, I got to be studying. Oh, why did you call me into the ministry? I don't even like those people. I don't do it grudgingly. I do it out of an offering, a free will offering to the Lord. What I'm giving him, I'm giving it freely. It's a great question. I want to ask myself. You want to ask yourself that, man. What I'm giving to God, is it done here with open hands? You can have it. If it wasn't for you, God, I wouldn't even have breath in my lungs. You can have every bit of it. These people gave this free will offering. They just gave it. Now, the second thing is this, at the end of verse 3. Notice when they gave it, so they continued bringing to him free will offerings every morning. Now, this is going to become a problem in the next verse, and so we'll talk about that in just a moment. But here's another question. For myself, for you, you can ask yourself this question. What I give to God, is it lifestyle? Is it on the daily? Or is it, I got a few minutes to kill a couple times a month? I'll give you that. Or is it done daily? For these people, it was daily. Daily. And it was every morning. Now, that's convicting for me, and I'll tell you why. Because Pastor Chris is not a morning person. You might be thinking, well, you seem pretty excited right now. Like, what are you all excited about? This is because I get pumped up when I come in here on Sunday mornings and on Wednesday nights, too. But I got to confess something to you. I am not a morning person. I have a tough time in the mornings. My normal routine, I know you want to know this, so I'll share it with you. My normal routine is when I wake up. This may be so disappointing for some of you, but I'm going to be open and honest with you. Most of the time, when I wake up, the first thing I do is turn on the TV. And then I normally am looking for TCM, Turner Classic Movies. I'm normally looking for a black and white movie. Why? I don't know. My mind thinks in black and white. I don't know. I just like in the first thing in the morning, like I don't want to see killing and I just put something on, because what I need to do is I need to wake up slowly. It's like, okay, sometimes I'm waking up and this happens to me often. I'll wake up and be like, what's today? Am I supposed to be getting up? Is it Sunday morning? What am I doing? What's happening? What day of the week is it? And it takes me a while to get going. Now, I'll continue on with my morning routine because I know you really want to know this. And then normally what I'll do is after a while of laying there, okay, I think I know where I'm at. Okay, right leg is going to get out of the bed. Okay, here we go. And then normally what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll get the coffee going. Go to have a cup of coffee. Just one. I'm not a coffee addict, but just one. Okay? So normally I get the coffee going, and then I come back while that's cooking, and normally I'll get my oatmeal going in there too, like old man oatmeal and coffee. And then I'll come back in, start making the bed and all that stuff, and kind of get cleaned up, straightened up, and then go back into the kitchen, got my coffee, my oatmeal, steel cut oats only, okay? And then what I do is I sit down, then I start reading the Word, studying for you guys. Now, if I try to, there's been times where I tried to, like, first thing in the morning, wake up, okay, grab my Bible, time to read, start reading. Some of you will relate to this. I'll read the same chapter like 10 times, and then I'll be like, wait, what did I just read? Like, I don't even know what I just read. So in my mind, I'm thinking, if I wake up first thing and I open the Bible and start reading, but I don't know what I read, I'm not really giving God my best. So I need to get my brain going first. It takes me a little while. Now, some of you can wake up, boom, you're alert, you get your Bible, you start reading in bed. That is fantastic. And that is something that you ought to keep up and continue doing for the rest of your life. The reason I'm sharing my story with you, you're like, why would you share all that weird stuff about you in the mornings? Here's why. Is because I've been saved for a long time. And I've sat through so many Bible studies where I felt like I was kind of like less of a Christian because I didn't open my Bible as soon as I opened my eyes. And oftentimes I've heard people, they don't say like, oh, if you don't read your Bible, you're a loser. They don't say that. But it's just like, I read my Bible as soon as I wake up. And you get like, it's like, oh man, I don't do that. Here's the point that I'm getting at. The point is, I want to give God my very best. For me, personally, first thing in the morning is not my very best. It is not a pretty sight. Okay? And so I want to give God my best. So for me, personally, it takes me a little bit. It's like, okay, I got to wake up. Maybe for you, you could just bam, same thing. But here's the bigger question. Is that a normal practice for me? Is spending time with God lifestyle? Is it daily? Or is it just occasional? And when I think about it, and maybe if I have some extra time, I'll give it to you. For these people, they continued bringing to Him free will offerings every morning. They got into that practice. They got into that habit. And that's a good thing to do. Now, it's funny, because this becomes a problem. In verse 4, then all the craftsmen who were doing all the work of the sanctuary came. Each from the work he was doing. They all stopped working. They all show up. And they spoke to Moses in verse 5, and here's what they said. The people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which the Lord has commanded us to do. So Moses in verse 6 gave a commandment. This is crazy. And they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp. And here's what the commandment said in verse 6. Let neither man nor woman do any more work for the offering of the sanctuary. And the people were restrained from bringing. For the material they had was sufficient for all the work to be done. Indeed, too much. These people actually, this is unheard of. These people actually gave too much to God. Now, this is extremely convicting for me. Because there has not, and I've been saved for 28 years. Can't even remember, it's been so long. 28 years. In all those 28 years, I've never once had God tell me that I gave too much. Usually, I'm skimping. Sometimes in the mornings, go back to my morning routine because I know you really want to know this. Sometimes in the morning, I make the mistake of picking this thing up, man. Now, I'm not one of those guys. I like phones. Extremely handy. I really like my phone. I spend a lot of time on it. But sometimes I make the mistake of waking up, I'm laying there for a little while, and then I grab my phone. If I get lots of text messages. That's the primary way that I communicate with people. And so I'll pick that up, and then I look through it. And oftentimes what will happen is I get caught up in, oh, let me send this to, oh, that's right, I need to send this to, oh, I got to answer this question. I got to contact this person. Things are wrong. And then I get caught up. And oftentimes what happens is I get distracted. It's like, oh, man, it's getting late. Oh, man, I need my coffee. I need my oatmeal. Got to make the bed. Oh, man, I don't really have time to sit down and read. I got to go. Jump in the shower. I got to do my thing or whatever. And I got to get going because I got to get early, whatever. And oftentimes I can find myself distracted. And then later on during the day, like, man, I haven't even studied. I haven't read. What am I doing? And I can find myself distracted that way. Oftentimes I'm skimping in my giving to God. I've never had God say, Chris, you've offered too much. Go ahead and keep a little for yourself. I've never had him say that. Usually because I'm not giving enough, or at least in my own personal life. I want to give it all. But the sad truth is, I rarely give it all. Oftentimes, I'm holding back. I'm withholding from God. These people gave so much that the craftsman said, hey, they gave too much. It's piling up. Tell them to stop. Moses had to go tell me a commandment. Don't bring any more stuff. It's like they're commanding, you better not bring any more materials here. Quit offering the Lord stuff. I've never had that happen. I don't know what that's like. I have to confess. The people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which the Lord commanded us to do at the end of verse 5. And in verse 7, for the material they had was sufficient. It's enough for all the work to be done, indeed too much. I want to be there. I want to be in that place. I don't ever expect God to tell me, oh, you've given too much, but I want to reach for that. Like, I want to strive for that. Like I'd rather burn out than rust out. I want to just go and as I get older, just give more and more and more to the Lord till there's nothing left, man, till I just die some, just withered up old man. Like, I don't know, I just gave God everything and I'm just, it's all his, and then just go to heaven. I don't want to learn how to hold more and more back and, cheat God. Well, if I give him this, then, I can kind of, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to go and just give. And Lord, you can have more every day, every day, every day. Take it. Take more time. I want to be like this. I want to offer it freely every day. Too much. God help me. Now, what happens here is that in this, that was the collecting of I've kind of mixed myself up. Sorry about that. The craftsmen are gathered. We've seen the collecting of the offerings. Now we get into our third and final section, which is the construction begins. Now, this is a long section. Let me explain to you what we're going to do from this point on. I told you that the study would be much different than we would normally do. Okay? Now, beginning from chapter 36, verse 8, all the way through chapter 37, okay? All of those verses we've actually read before. You go, what? What are you talking about? Well, here's what happened. Earlier in the book of Exodus, like around chapter 30, God was speaking to Moses, and he was giving him instructions. He gave instructions about, he gave instructions about the tabernacle, how to construct it. He gave them instructions on the curtains. He gave them instructions on the boards. He gave them instructions on the veil, the screen, the ark of the testimony, the table for the showbread, the gold lampstand, the altar of incense, the anointing oil, and the incense. Now, he gave all of them very detailed instructions. Make these things this way, do it this way, cover it with this, use these kind of materials. He was very specific, okay? And some of us that were in here, we read through all of that. Well, right here in our study at verse 8, all the way through chapter 37, is all those same exact instructions, except this time what it says is, they did this, and 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 they did this. So if we were to read through it, it would be like we were all reading through it a second time. It's like, well, I already read all these things. I know this. So what I chose to do this time is, instead of you hearing me read through all of those verses, we're going to go section by section. I've got some videos to show you on each of these items. And I think that the videos, although they're kind of old and not the greatest quality, still going to be a little more interesting than listening to me read through all of these verses, especially if you've sat through that already. Okay? Now, for those of you that you go, hey, I wasn't here the first time. I don't know what all this stuff is. Why are you just skipping over it? Well, that's why we're showing the videos. We're not skipping over it. Okay? The first one that we're going to see is the curtains. Now, some of us, we read through all those details earlier, and then we watched a video. Well, this time we're not going to read through all the details, but I am going to show the videos. That way you have an idea. You've got it. It's kind of like not kind of, it's a visual. Okay, it's a picture. You kind of look and go, oh, okay, that's what he was talking about. Now, the other thing that I need to explain about these videos is some of them are a word-for-word reading from the Bible. However, some of them, they're from earlier chapters. So if you're trying to follow along, it's not in chapter 36. You'd have to go back to like chapter 30 or something. So I would suggest that just watch I'll explain what the video is going to be, and I'll show you the correlation with what we're chapter 36 and 37, and then you just watch the videos, enjoy, kick back. If I had popcorn, I'd give you some, but I don't. Okay? Any questions? No? Good. Okay, I think, Matt, are you doing videos for me, or are they already set up? They're set up. Okay, well, let's see if this works, man. Come on. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. Is that the same? Sorry. All right, let's see. Oh, so here's the deal. In case you're taking notes, from verses 8 to 19, it has to do with the curtains that are going to make up the tabernacle. Okay, curtains, tabernacle. What? I am so glad that you asked. Let's see if this works. Oh, baby. Here we go. See there, this is from an earlier chapter.
Make the tabernacle from 10 sheets of fine linen. These sheets are to be decorated with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, with figures of cherubim skillfully embroidered into them. Each sheet must be 42 feet long and 6 feet wide. All 10 sheets must be exactly the same size. Join 5 of these sheets together into one set. Then join the other 5 sheets into a second set. Put loops of blue yarn along the edge of the last sheet in each set. The 50 loops along the edge of one set are to match the 50 loops along the edge of the other. Then make 50 gold clasps to fasten the loops of the 2 sets of sheets together, making the tabernacle a single unit. Make heavy sheets of cloth from goat hair to cover the tabernacle. There must be 11 of these sheets, each 45 feet long and 6 feet wide. All 11 of these sheets must be exactly the same size. Join 5 of these together into one set and join the other 6 into a second set. The 6th sheet of the second set is to be doubled over at the entrance of the sacred tent. Put 50 loops along the edge of the last sheet in each set and fasten them together with 50 bronze clasps. In this way, the 2 sets will become a single unit. An extra half sheet of this roof covering will be left to hang over the back of the tabernacle, and the covering will hang down an extra 18 inches on each side. On top of these coverings, place a layer of tanned ram skins, and over them put a layer of fine goatskin leather. This will complete the roof covering.
See the quality of that video? Only the best for you guys. So that had to do with the curtains. This one's the boards. The boards that make up, you kind of saw some walls in there as they were covering. This one has to do with the boards. Let's take a look at this one. Oh, let's try that again. We're going to try it.
And thou shalt make boards from the tabernacle of shittim wood, standing up. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and 1.5 cubits shall be the breadth of one board. 2 tenons shall there be in one board, set in order one against another. Thus shalt thou make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And thou shalt make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards on the south side southward. And thou shalt make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. And for the second side of the tabernacle on the north side there shall be 20 boards, and there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. And for the sides of the tabernacle westward thou shalt make 6 boards, and 2 boards shalt thou make for the corners of the tabernacle in the 2 sides. And they shall be coupled together beneath, and they shall be coupled together above the head of it unto one ring. And they shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. And thou shalt make bars of shittim wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tabernacle, for the 2 sides westward. And the middle bar in the midst of the board shall reach from end to end. And thou shalt overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold for places for the bars. And thou shalt overlay the bars with gold. And thou shalt rear up the tabernacle according to the fashion thereof which was showed thee in the mount.
Okay, in case you're taking notes, that was verses 20 through 34. And again, these were instructions that were already given. And what our chapter is telling us is, and they did it, and they did it, and they did it, and they did it. So, the next one is going to be the veil in verses 35 and 36. And the video has a little bit extra in there besides the veil, but let's see what it says here.
Across the inside of the tabernacle hang a special curtain made of fine linen with cherubim skillfully embroidered into the cloth, using blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. Hang this inner curtain on gold hooks set into 4 posts made from acacia wood and overlaid with gold. The posts will fit into the silver bases. When the inner curtain is in place, put the Ark of the Covenant behind it. This curtain will separate the holy place from the most holy place. Then put the Ark's cover, the place of atonement, on top of the Ark of the Covenant, inside the most holy place. Place the table and lampstand across the room from each other outside the inner curtain. The lampstand must be placed on the south side, and the table must be set toward the north. Make another curtain from fine linen for the entrance of the sacred tent, and embroider exquisite designs into it, using blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. Hang this curtain on gold hooks set into 5 posts made from acacia wood and overlaid with gold. The post will fit into 5 bronze bases.
All right, that took care of the rest of the chapter 36, verses 35 through 38, the veil, and the screen was the second one that we saw there. So now we just move right on into chapter 37, Ark of the Covenant. Ark of the Covenant was supposed to go inside there.
And Bezalel made the ark of acacia wood. 2 cubits and a half was the length of it, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth of it, and 1 cubit and a half the height of it. And he overlaid it with pure gold within and without, and made a crown of gold to it round about. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold. In the 4 feet thereof, even 2 rings on the one side of it, and 2 rings on the other side of it. And he made staves of acacia wood, and overlaid them with gold. And he put the staves into the rings on the side of the ark, to bear the ark. And he made an ark cover of pure gold. 2 cubits and a half was the length thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth thereof. And he made 2 cherubim of gold, of beaten work made he them, at the 2 ends of the ark cover. 1 cherub at the one end, and 1 cherub at the other end. Of one piece with the ark cover made he the cherubim at the two ends thereof. And the cherubim spread out their wings on high, screening the ark cover with their wings, with their faces one to another. Toward the ark cover were the faces of the cherubim. Exodus chapter 37, verses 1 through 9.
All right, that one was directly from our passage here in 37. And by the way, as we're going through these videos, we need to know that that's the voice of God. He speaks with an Old English accent, in case you didn't know. Just kidding. All right, verses 10 through 16. Table for the showbread. Showbread, what is all of that? Let's see.
Thou shalt also make a table of shittim wood. 2 cubits shall be the length thereof, and a cubit the breadth thereof, and a cubit and a half the height thereof. And thou shalt overlay it with pure gold, and make thereto a crown of gold round about. And thou shalt make unto it a border of an handbreadth round about. And thou shalt make a golden crown to the border thereof round about. And thou shalt make for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings in the 4 corners that are on the 4 feet thereof. Over against the border shall the rings be for places of the staves to bear the table. And thou shalt make the staves of shittim wood, and overlay them with gold, that the table may be borne with them. And thou shalt make the dishes thereof, and spoons thereof, and covers thereof, and bowls thereof, to cover withal. Of pure gold shalt thou make them. And thou shalt set upon the table showbread before me always.
All right, and that was chapter 37, verses 10 through 16, the showbread. A couple more quick ones. Next one is the gold lampstand, verses 17 through 24. This one is probably going to be familiar to you.
And thou shalt make a candlestick of pure gold. Of beaten work shall the candlestick be made, his shaft and his branches, his bowls, his knops, and his flowers shall be of the same. And 6 branches shall come out of the sides of it, 3 branches of the candlestick out of the one side, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side. 3 bowls made like unto almonds, with a knop and a flower in one branch, and 3 bowls made like almonds in the other branch, with a knop and a flower. So in the 6 branches that come out of the candlestick. And in the candlestick shall be 4 bowls made like unto almonds, with their knops and their flowers. And there shall be a knop under 2 branches of the same, and a knop under 2 branches of the same, and a knop under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that proceed out of the candlestick. Their knops and their branches shall be of the same. All it shall be one beaten work of pure gold. And thou shalt make the 7 lamps thereof, and they shall light the lamps thereof, that they may give light over against it. And the tongs thereof, and the snuff dishes thereof, shall be of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold shall he make it, with all these vessels. And look that thou make them after their pattern, which was showed thee in the mount.
All right, anybody notice that? We call it a menorah today. Anybody ever seen something like that? Candlestick type of thing? The Jews will use it during Hanukkah. Normally you'll see it around Christmas time. Separate holiday, but they'll normally use that menorah. One more video. Altar of incense.
And thou shalt make an altar to burn incense upon. Of acacia wood shalt thou make it. A cubit shall be the length thereof, and a cubit the breadth thereof. 4 square shall it be, and 2 cubits shall be the height thereof. The horns thereof shall be of one piece with it. And thou shalt overlay it with pure gold, the top thereof, and the sides thereof round about, and the horns thereof, and thou shalt make unto it a crown of gold round about. And 2 golden rings shalt thou make for it under the crown thereof, upon the 2 ribs thereof, Upon the two sides of it shalt thou make them, and they shall be for places for staves, wherewith to bear it. And thou shalt make the staves of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. And thou shalt put it before the veil that is by the ark of the testimony, before the ark cover that is over the testimony, where I will meet with thee. And Aaron shall burn thereon incense of sweet spices every morning. When he dresseth the lamps, he shall burn it. And when Aaron lighteth the lamps at dusk, he shall burn it, a perpetual incense before the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall offer no strange incense thereon, nor burnt offering, nor meal offering, and ye shall pour no drink offering thereon. And Aaron shall make atonement upon the horns of it once in the year. With the blood of the sin offering of atonement, once in the year shall he make atonement for it throughout your generations. It is most holy unto the Lord. Exodus chapter 30, verses 1 through 10.
All right, and then the very last verse in Exodus 37, we don't have a video for it. He also made the holy anointing oil and the pure incense of sweet spices according to the work of the perfumer. Now, if you're watching these and going, man, what is all of this stuff? I'm glad that you asked. We're going to discover together as we continue going through that God doesn't make any mistakes. He doesn't do things randomly. He wasn't making all this stuff just to flex. Like, oh yeah, well, watch what I can do, and look at this, and, woo, how do you like that? Everything has a meaning. Everything has a purpose, and we'll get to that as we continue on. We're going to close in prayer, but I want you to think about what we talked about. What is my offering like? Do I give my best to God? Do I give my all to God? I want to chase that just surrendering it all to the Lord. It's all yours, God. I don't want to withhold anything. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this morning.